How's it going, everybody? Andrew Zarian here, Wrestling Observer Live. We're here every day, Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. on Saturdays with Jim Valley, and Sundays with me. Happy Sunday, everybody. I was not here last week, but I'm here today. But we do have a lot to talk about. You know, we didn't touch on a lot of things because we didn't do a show last week, but we're going to touch on all of it. WrestleMania is heating up this week, the road to WrestleMania. A lot of things solidified on Smackdown, live from Italy, from Bologna, Italy. That crowd was hot. This European trip that they've done is unbelievable. We'll talk about this because this is very different than previous years. They're doing a whole lot more in Europe, especially with TV, because they have time now before WrestleMania, because WrestleMania is a couple of weeks delayed, I guess, from their normal schedule. They're running on Easter Sunday, April 20th. Normally, they run that first Sunday or the second Sunday. So we'll talk about that. A lot of the matches are shaping up. You also had AEW Collision last night, 1 hour special, and tonight as well. In a few hours, you can watch AEW Collision, I guess part 2. Part 2. They split the show up to go after the NCAA, the NCAA tournament's happening. So they move things around. We'll find out if this is a good idea. Also, Dynasty. AEW Dynasty coming up in a few weeks. We're going to talk about that. And the card is shaping up. And a whole lot more here. Do me a favor. Follow me on X at Andrew Zarian. Let me know what you think of all the topics we're talking about. Make this interactive. When we come back, we're going to go into Smackdown, Raw, AEW Collision, Dynamite, and a whole lot more. Wrestling Observer Live here on Sports Byline. Stay tuned. Wrestling Observer Live here on Sports Byline, Sunday edition of the show. Love doing this on a Sunday. Nice and relaxed. The week's over, and the week's beginning. Great. You know, this tour in Europe for WWE, I want to take some time and talk about this. You know, they've come off a pretty hot momentum. Elimination Chamber, big show. We saw the turn of John Cena. They go straight into Monday Night Raw from MSG, from Madison Square Garden. Probably the most sold Madison Square Garden show for them in a very, very long time. Humongous gate for that show. Well over 18,000 legitimately in seats. Now, WWE called, 4 different numbers here. 17,000, 18,000, 19,000, 20,000. But it was legitimately over 18. And that is very impressive considering how expensive those Garden tickets were. This is showing you how hot this product is. You know, this is. I got a question for my producer here. You know, we're a little older.
Yes, sir.
You're older than me. When I think, what is the hottest period for wrestling? I automatically default to the Attitude Era. That was the hottest period in professional wrestling. What do you go
your
to?
earliest memory of it? Me, you know what? Honestly, the rock and wrestling stuff was what I kind of gets that gauge for me too.
Okay, gives you that gauge,
early '80s,
right?
Because I was in.
I knew that.
Yeah, boom. I was a teenager back then.
I wasn't. I was a child, and that's how I got into wrestling. I got into it during that era, and then the Attitude Era. I was a teenager. Would you say this is a hotter period than all of them? I mean, if you really consider the money that they're making. Yeah, I guess so, right?
I think it's getting more mainstream exposure than it ever has before. Whether or not people like to say that or hear that or not, it really is.
WWE has become a spectacle. It is no longer professional wrestling, okay? They're obviously, listen, when I say that, obviously I know it is professional wrestling, but the presentation of this is not the wrestling we grew up on. This is not our wrestling. There are elements of it still. They'll always be connected, but this has become something very, very different. You know, this is a terrible comparison, and somebody said this to me, right? If MLB baseball is wrestling, then the Savannah Bananas would be a spectacle. right? That is a spectacle of the sport of baseball. Is it baseball? Sure. Is it the baseball that you watch with MLB? No. And I'm not saying like WWE is a joke or anything like that, but it's the same sport, but presented very differently. One is a spectacle, and one is still being presented in the traditional sense. WWE is a spectacle. I mean, the fact that they have these sold-out tours in Europe, they have this extended tour in Europe, these crowds are hot. Smackdown was huge last Friday from Spain. Then they went to Belgium for Raw, and that was a huge Raw that aired in the afternoon. Then they were in Bologna, Italy. They're in Glasgow for Monday Night Raw, Nottingham tonight, Belfast on Saturday, London for SmackDown, then London again for Raw. I mean, they are on some crazy momentum here. And I can't say it's one program. Can you?
No, I think it's a weird thing. We always talk about that with the WWE. It's the whole thing, right? It's the spectacle of it.
It's WWE. That is what
you don't say I'm going to see Cody Rhodes.
Yeah.
You say I'm going to see WWE. You don't say I'm going to see the clowns and the elephants at the circus. You say I'm going to the circus. Mm-hmm.
This is the circus.
So
this is 100% is the circus.
It really is.
It's really interesting, the shift that we've seen. And, you know, I wanted to take time to talk about this because I think people don't see this as a major, regardless if you think this is a positive for pro wrestling or a negative, this is a monumental time period for wrestling. You have a product like WWE that is the spectacle of it all and larger than life, and they're selling out large arenas and stadiums. And you have another product that is presenting wrestling for the wrestling purist. We have variety here. And I enjoy both, and you're allowed to enjoy both. You could enjoy TV shows and movies. You could enjoy the theater and a sitcom. You know, it's a very different presentation for WWE compared to what everybody else is doing. With that said, can they keep this momentum? I don't see it dropping. I really don't.
Anytime soon.
Not anytime soon. They have years of creative that they could work with the people that they have on hand, and it's actually unbelievable to see.
We got to give Hunter or Triple H or Paul Levesque, whatever you want to call him these days.
Yeah,
a lot of credit for sticking with these storylines and not not jumping off on them, because I think AEW's abandoned more storylines in the last couple of years than WWE has. Whereas when Vince was in charge, we were abandoning storylines on
left
the
and right. You never even knew what was going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah. So, keeping with it and allowing these things to build and people to get interest in it. 2 weeks ago, you and I were not interested in Charlotte and Tiffany.
No, they did a great job on SmackDown last night.
They especially the last week when they did that pull apart. I was like, okay, I'm starting to get more interest in it. Might not be there yet, but okay. So things like that, like they're sticking to their guns and moving forward, and it's paying off with with everything we're seeing.
No, totally is paying off. Look at how the show started here, right? You're in for SmackDown. You're in Bologna, Italy. Huge crowd, big Italian flags everywhere. Randy Orton comes out. That crowd is singing along. They know every word. And this is the thing about the European crowds. They get very into it, and it becomes a very different show. And I'm curious if that irritates WWE, if this was every show is like this, even in the States, or they like to treat this as something special. Because that crowd is in control of the narrative. Very much so. Crowd comes out singing to Randy Orton. Before Orton could even say much, here comes Kevin Owens. His music hits. He walks down. He was there to tell Orton that Owens was wrong for attacking Orton and hitting him with a pile driver. Cody and Sammy deserved everything he did to them, but Orton didn't. Followed up by saying instead of being fight Owens fight, it should be a word that I cannot say on radio. The B word? Owens B word? Orton wasn't
He was
buying
basically
it.
he was trying to apologize in a roundabout way and make it up to him, and it just didn't work. You could tell it's like, yeah, this ain't gonna fly. Orton ain't gonna buy this. So
Orton wasn't buying it, and this seems to be the match. And later in the night, it was Orton versus KO at Mania. That's a great match.
It's gonna be for a Mania match. They're gonna go all out. We'll get there, but this Mania card might be one on paper one of the better we've seen in a while.
Yeah. Damian Priest, Jimmy Uso defeated Drew McIntyre and Shinsuke Nakamura. You're seeing how this is being set up here for Drew and Damian. After the match, McIntyre attacked Priest and yelled at him. McIntyre ultimately hit the Claymore on Priest. Now, what are they going to do with Nakamura?
That's a good question. There's a lot of people that are in limbo still.
A lot of people in limbo. And he has a whole new gimmick, too. So I think they're going to do something. This is when they did the Charlotte and Tiffy split screen. This went back and forth, pretty much saying that, Charlotte's time is done. Charlotte saying Tiffany's not as good as she says that she is. And that are they there to watch her? They went back and forth here. It was fine. It felt like Tiffany's lines were all scripted, but Charlotte was able to adjust as an interview went on. Charlotte seemed far more comfortable compared to Tiffany here, but they're attempting this program. When we come back, I want to touch on this a little bit more in Charlotte's return and what it means. Wrestling Observer Live here on Sports Byline. We'll be back right after this. Wrestling Observer Live here on Sports Byline. I had to take a little commercial break, but I want to pick up where we left off. Charlotte, really, if you think about it, right, she has been set up as the one in this company. And for whatever reason, the fans have soured on her. It doesn't mean as much. And no matter how much she goes away and comes back, they get really sour on her. Tiffany brought that up in the promo, in that side-by-side, split screen they were doing. And Charlotte goes something along the lines of, well, they're either booing or wooing. I was like, yeah, pretty much. Braun Strowman defeated Jacob Fatu via DQ. This became a total disaster at the end when everybody came in the ring and they interrupted. Solo would hit a Samoan spike on Strowman, causing the DQ. Jacob Fatu is not happy with Solo. So there is somewhat of a problem within the bloodline on that side. Are they just abandoning the whole thing at this point? Is it over?
It feels that way, doesn't it? So I think he went ballistic backstage after, and obviously the match looks like it's going to be Solo and Fatu at Mania. At least that's what.
Part of it to me shows that this is more of an adjustment they're making because Jacob Fatu got very connected to the audience where Solo didn't. And not to say that Solo won't, but it seems like Jacob Fatu came in and kind of overshadowed Solo. And I don't know if that was by design. I think that was just pure whatever, Jacob, he's an extremely charismatic guy. Something very special about him, so he really stands out there. But I'm curious if this was a pivot more than design to go to this. What do you think?
Maybe. I feel like they always were going this direction, because they have to do something. Obviously, Fatu is the hot one because they basically have taken Roman out of this part of the bloodline stuff, and obviously we'll talk about his whole thing later. But this feels like it's this is getting Jacob Fatu into that next level into that main event picture. Ultimately, that's where it's going. And he's got to be the leader on that side.
Yeah.
I think that's what this is about.
Yeah, very, very interesting. You had Braun Strowman defeating him, like we said. You had Piper Niven defeating Zelina Vega. Liv Morgan defeated Jade. They showed one of the Italian flags fans have made a Mona Lisa copy of Liv's face.
Did you see it?
I did. They loved her. They're into her.
Creativity knows no bound.
Creativity knows no bound.
Italians.
Yeah, this was Jade's first singles loss. I'm surprised that she lost. I'm surprised they did this match. Naomi interfered essentially. Hit Jade with a belt, causing
later out. Yep.
Liv to win. Hit the Oblivion, and she won. And this is continuing the story. So we know where Jade is going for WrestleMania. We know what that program is. But I'm surprised that they had her lose.
Yeah, that was a shock to me, and it was kind of overshadowed. It really didn't get a lot. I didn't feel like
it should have meant more.
Spent a lot of time on that and made sure. Oh my God, this is a big deal. You know, it was more about Naomi interfering than, hey, she just lost for the first time. And I seen a stat, and I wish I had it here. Liv Morgan's had more like firsts. Like she was the first to like pin Rhea in like 2 years, and she was the first. She's got all these like phenomenal little things they've given her over the years.
She's such a good heel in the sense of like to get those cheap wins, and it actually helps her.
Yeah, she's so good. You know, trying to think of going back in the day who was good at that, but yeah.
Drew McIntyre was interviewed by Kathy Kelly as he left the building. McIntyre said that he didn't start this stuff with Priest, but he's going to end it. McIntyre said Priest is always there to pick Drew's bones like a vulture. Every time Drew was knocked down over the last year, he said that he's waiting for Priest next week in London. Okay, so that's the program there. Street Profits came out, and I got to tell you, dude, these guys look really impressive. They came out to celebrate their title win from last week. It's been 4 years since the Profits had a title. You know, they're heels here. But Montez got very emotional. He got very emotional here. Rightfully so. A big deal. Legado del Fantasma came out. Afterwards, they said that they deserve a title shot. And even though the number one contenders were Pretty Deadly would come out and tell them to step aside. Montez Ford said that he would give them a match tonight. Montez Ford defeated Los Garza, Berto and Angel, to retain the tag team titles. They won about 13 minutes of TV time. Okay, great. I thought this was fine. I think their tag division is really growing, and the crowd went crazy for this.
Yeah, so Montez Ford just went and got himself shredded.
He looks incredible.
Yeah, he looks great. That spot out of the corner where he flipped.
Oh my God!
Flipped out of the double team stuff and just looked, and he was like flexing when he came out. I was like, okay, and the crowd just lost it. So they're over.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're more baby faces, but that's just me.
I think that was today. I think because of where they were and people like them. You know, first time title, getting the title in 4 years. You know, they staled out, and they were. You remember a couple years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, we were talking about who will be a champion in that company. Montez Ford was one of those names, those up and coming names that we were talking about as being a world champion in that company. And then they made some creative decisions that really hampered them. I'm glad to see them back in the mix here, and they're doing something with this tag division. You got a big segment here. Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, CM Punk. Roman came out first, took about 45 minutes to get to the ring. He started talking. He recapped, as usual. He started recapping, showing up at MSG, costing Rollins the steel cage match and attacking Punk. Reigns said that he came a long way to be here. And he's been there He's been there.
He'll be in the ring for another.
He'd be in the
15,
ring for another 15, 20. Yeah. Thank you. That's what it meant. If anybody wanted to confront him, this is the time. Seth Rollins, music hits. The crowd went insane. Seth comes out. He told Reigns that he messed up because he doesn't understand how dangerous CM Punk is. And Reigns should have left Rollins to finish Punk when he had the chance. Rollins said the story of Roman and Seth have a lot of pages already written, and it's time that they write another chapter. Here's CM Punk's music. He would come out, I got to tell you, the crowd went nuts for Punk. They were singing along. I never heard that song sung like this.
About to happen.
And they knew something was about to happen.
Yeah.
He came out with his right fist taped up. He went and sat right in the corner with the mic. He said neither of them had beaten him one-on-one without the help of another. And, the connection with Punk, because he brought them in, remember? That was a story that got totally weird because they were his hired mercenary, and then they weren't.
That's what they wanted you to think, right?
That's what they wanted you to think,
like in charge of, it was a whole thing.
But he had a hand in that concept of the Shield. He said neither of them had beat him. He brought up the favor and said that they could wait, but thank you, Paul, for delivering his tribal chief. When Roman turned around to question Paul, Punk hit him in the back with the mic. Then it became a three-way brawl with all three of them pointing at the WrestleMania sign at various points of this segment.
That was hokey. Didn't it come off a little hokey?
They just keep pointing at that sign. Later, it was announced that it's going to be a three-way at WrestleMania. Here's the current lineup for Mania. Undisputed Championship, Cody and John Cena. World Heavyweight Championship, Gunther, Jey Uso. WWE Women's Championship, Tiffany Stratton defends against Charlotte Flair. What number would this be for Charlotte if she won?
I think it's 15.
No, it's not. 14. Can it? Is it
sure
really?
15. Yeah.
Already?
Yeah. Well, dude, it's been so. Here's a stat for you. Did you realize that those 4 horsemen, women, ladies from that first class, they've all been active wrestling longer than Stone Cold Steve Austin's whole career?
That's crazy.
How's that?
That is crazy.
So. Yeah, they've been there. It's 10 years. She's been on the main roster. It'll be 10 years this summer, I believe. So, I mean, and they remember they.
You mean his WWE run, not his whole career?
No, his whole career, 1989 to 2003.
Wow.
Yeah, almost as long. Yeah.
Wow, I thought Austin was earlier than 89.
He started in 89. He was with USWA.
Yeah.
So.
Wild.
Yeah. I mean, it's not. It's close. I don't think it's quite. They're not quite there, but
close enough though. 89. Yeah, early career, starting in 89. Wild stuff. I mean, they've been there forever. They've been there forever.
Yeah, all those. Yeah, and Bayley and Charlotte are still with the company, so it's wild.
Yeah, we. When we come back, I'll touch on some more on the card. Go into AEW and Dynasty and everything else happening in the world of professional wrestling. Wrestling Observer Live here on Sports Byline. Back right after this. Wrestling Observer Live here on Sports Byline. Let's pick it up where we left it off. Tiffany Stratton against Charlotte Flair, WrestleMania for the women's title. WWE Women's World Championship. Io Sky defends against Bianca Belair. But Rhea Ripley signed the contract. What happened?
That was odd to me. I don't
That was wacky because it was so out of character for Rhea to do that entire thing. But they had to get her in somehow.
And this is what they came up. And trying to get your way. Right?
Yeah. She lost, and now she's throwing a temper tantrum. Roman Reigns, CM Punk, Seth Rollins. This probably will be main event night 1 of the show. Randy Orton, Kevin Owens. And most likely, we're going to get Damian Priest, Drew McIntyre, possibly AJ Styles, Braun Breaker. Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez will probably defend in a multi-team match. And I'm sure many, many other matches are going to be announced. We have plenty of time.
I also think So here's a question for you.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm going to legitimately expect you not to be able to answer this.
Okay.
Who are the Raw Tag Team Champions on the men's side?
Who are the Raw Tag Team Champions on the men's side? I don't know. Why don't I know this?
The answer is the War Raiders.
It is the War Raiders. Yes, it is the War Raiders. Yeah.
But it's been so long since they've been on TV because they're concentrating on other programs. That
they were on 2 weeks ago.
That. Yeah. It seems very hit or miss.
And do you know when they won the tag titles? This is the best part. Okay? They won the tag titles in December.
Yeah.
December 16th. It tells you what's going on with that tag title on the Raw side. I don't think there should be 2 tag titles. I'm going to be honest with you. I know why they do it.
That too.
I know why they do it, but at times they have so many tag teams. Like
they're
the
doing
War
a great
Raiders
job on SmackDown, but not on Raw.
They have plenty of tag teams, but the problem with the tag teams on that company, and I need to go into AEW, but the problem with the tag teams in that company is that they concentrate heavy on them, but they're never real tag teams. It's like Truth and Miz put together, or Finn Balor and JD McDonough. Finn Balor's a singles competitor. He's not a tag team guy. So I think if they had one tag title, and you could rotate that. You could do something with that.
Mm-hmm.
AEW Collision last night. AEW Collision slam dunk. This went on after the final, I guess, match for the NCAA tournament last night. St. John's lost yesterday. Devastating loss in my neighborhood.
My condolences.
I'm a St. John's town. That's where Bayside is a St. John's town. AEW TNT title. Daniel Garcia, Adam Cole. They went to a time limit draw. This was a good match. Cole's looking much better. Much, much better. He's putting in, whatever. That was a rough couple of years he had. He had the boom kick set up, but time ran out. So this is going to continue most likely.
Running toward his head. Yeah, he was literally running toward his head, and the bell rang, and it was just like deflated.
Yeah. Max Caster came down for another open challenge. This time, he told the fans that Anthony Bowen wasn't coming, but Hook showed up, and Hook just tapped him out. I think this is a big mistake. Okay?
As far as...
This is a big mistake. I think the Max Caster singles experiment, I don't know why they split them the way they did. It's very awkward. I don't think Caster should have been split. Maybe they wanted to do this. Maybe they want to be singles competitors, but I don't see them getting over as singles competitors as much as they did when they were a tag team. And I do believe that act had some legs still to it. Hook defeated Max Caster in a Best Wrestler Alive Open Challenge in seconds. Put him in a red rum and killed him. Julia Hart defeated Queen Aminata. Also on the card.
I got one more match for you.
Yeah, you deleted that line. I thought this was fine. I thought, and here it is. Yeah, thank you. You got Takeshita. You got the Murder Machines against Mark Briscoe, Powerhouse Hobbs, and Rocky Romero. Mark Briscoe, the king of being in these random tag matches.
Rocky Romero too.
Rocky just got killed in this match. I mean, Rocky's so good, but they put him in there. He ate everything. It was a fine match, and it was a good display for Takeshita. Announced lineup so far for Wednesday. AEW International Champion Kenny Omega is going to appear. MJF will respond to MVP's offer to join the Hurt Syndicate.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So, how are you feeling about this? The way they got to the triple threat so it's going to be Ricochet and Speedball Mike Bailey and Kenny Omega at the pay-per-view.
Okay, so I very much like that opening match on Dynamite. Okay, that crowd in Omaha, there was a huge blizzard that happened. That show almost did not happen. I don't know if anybody's talking about that.
Well, you could tell that there was a lot of people not there.
Okay.
That didn't make it.
And like very legitimately, there was a moment that they were going to make a call because it was a state of emergency. So that show almost didn't happen. They had a decent show with the people that they had on hand here, for sure. But
Moxley had to drive 11 hours.
Moxley drove 11 hours from Cincinnati, and a lot of other people had to drive from other places to get there. Kudos to them for pulling it off, and that building was not dead for being a snowed-in town. I thought that main event, that opening match, was really good. I like that match. It's different. Speedball Mike Bailey and Ricochet and Kenny Omega. That's a match I want to see.
Ricochet,
but the story here is the lead up to Kenny and Okada I have some news for next week on what they're going to do with this and what the plan is for this. So I'm gonna tease that a little bit because I wanna confirm one more thing. But they're doing something interesting here, and I feel like either they're gonna be, they're gonna do either title for title or unification. I think a unification would be fine. You don't need both titles. You don't need the international and the continental. Essentially, they serve the same purpose, and it kind of hurts one if one is hot, the other one isn't. Yeah. I don't know if they'll call it the Intercontinental, because literally, if you take the International and the Continental and you combine it, it's the Intercontinental title. We'll see. I like what they did. I didn't mind it. So far, the card for Dynasty, and this looks like a great card. Megan Bayne, Toni Storm, that was a great segment too from Dynamite. Megan Bayne is a big girl, strong. I really like that.
About Tony's segment.
Oh, dude, how about the Chris Statlander match?
Cut it out.
The Megan Bayne Chris Statlander match. Very good. And you know what? Two strong, muscular women just beating the crap out of each other. No flips, right? No ragdolling. Just beating the crap out of each other. Two very strong women beating each other up. I thought it was great. Tony came out and cut a great promo at the end. Again, something I cannot say on the radio.
She's like the only one that can get away with it now. And
yeah, I know. It's unbelievable. So good.
You wait to hear what she's going to say. Now, should that match main evented Dynamite? I don't know. But, I mean, I see why they did it.
I see why they did it. But you know what? Yeah. You know why they did it? Because, to be honest, Tony is the hottest world championship program right now. The men's world title is not hot at this very moment. Yeah. It's not. And that program of Cope and Mox or whatever Mox has been doing, it's not it.
How'd you feel about that street fight? Because I don't know.
I'm very conflicted about it. Was it better than what they did on the pay-per-view? Yes. That spike, the spiked bat spot, the spike thing
clearly got away from them. That had to have gotten away from them. They didn't expect it.
I don't think they expected. I mean, but what else?
2 inches deep in his skin.
But what do you expect? I mean, it could happen. I don't know. Is this the end of this program now? Where does this go? I don't. Well, we know there's going Jon Moxley against Swerve for the AEW title at Dynasty.
Right. And I think Cope might go in the Christian direction in one way or another.
I've been saying this for weeks. If you look at it in hindsight, Monday morning quarterbacking, I think they did the Christian Edge thing backwards. They should have had some sort of reunion, turn Edge Christian babyface for the time being, and then he turns on him, and then they could feud, and they could do, he just came in and did what he did. We'll see what happens there. But, I mean, this is all leading to All In. I mean, you have a lot of pay-per-views here in between that you got to get to. Obviously you're getting Okada and Omega again there. And you're most likely getting Will Ospreay challenging for the title. Is it better for him to challenge Swerve for the title or Jon Moxley? I think a lot of people think it's going to be Swerve. I think it's going to be Jon Moxley. Because now all that negative heat about how, everybody interferes and Moxley's not losing and they don't want to see Jon Moxley in this program with the briefcase, it'll all culminate when AEW's new hero, Will Ospreay, saves the day. I'm just telling you how I could see this playing out. I don't see it playing out where, Swerve, that's going to be a conflicted win if Ospreay's going to be your franchise. Which he is. He's going to be the franchise. So you can't have him beating another franchise player, like a babyface franchise player that obviously fans are really into. Then you got MJF in the mix. Then you got Hangman in the mix. It's a very different top tier that you're playing around with now. And maybe you move Okada into that world title positioning after a certain point. I think they have a very interesting couple months ahead that they could do a lot with. I think this is all positive, and that the rating was really good for AEW and the consistency. It was very good this week for Wednesday. They had people tuning in. They're interested in this. They want to see what's going to happen, and that's always the thing about AEW, especially leading up to a pay-per-view. You have to make it interesting. You know, Kenny being back and MJF being there and Adam Cole is healthy and you got Okada and you got Will Ospreay and you got, Copeland and you got Jon Moxley, Swerve. The pieces are kind of fitting in here. It's just now, how hot can this product get? The wrestling is never bad. The wrestling's fantastic. The TV's good. They don't really have terrible... I can't... Maybe one or two bad episodes of Dynamite. By the way, Dynamite is about to pass the amount of episodes of Monday Nitro. I think sometime in May.
That's wild to me.
Okay? If you were to do apples to apples, I cannot tell you how many bad episodes of Nitro I saw from the beginning of that show to the end of that show. Regularly, there were bad episodes. AEW, a handful. That's a pretty good track record. That's a good comparison to talk about sometime. When we come back, we got a couple more minutes of the show. I want to touch on a few more things here. Wrestling Observer Live here on Sports Byline. Stay tuned. Wrestling Observer Live here on Sports Byline. Final segment of the show. A couple notes here. Homicide, New York's very own. Homicide retired in Brooklyn on Thursday night. He teamed with Bull James against Mike Santana and Alpha Jr. at Thursday's Outlaw Wrestling event in Brooklyn. Homicide was victorious in his final career bout, taking place on his 48th birthday. They found a cyst on his brain, a mass on his brain, and he's retiring. You know, he's been beat up for a while. He's a legend in New York, Homicide. Ring of Honor legend, indie wrestling legend, TNA. Had a great run. I hope this is not as serious as it sounds, and he makes a return sometime. Seth Rollins, the guest host, NFL Network's Good Morning Football. I thought this man hated football. I guess not. I want to bring that up. He expressed interest in doing Bears commentary at some point and wants to start a podcast soon. It's just hysterical. Lex Luger also informed WWE that Sting is his preferred choice for the Hall of Fame induction. Sting's under contract with the AEW still, so I don't know if that's going to happen, if Tony's going to sign off. And also, Karrion Kross is going to compete in Josh Barnett's Bloodsport. He has a 1-1 record right now. His victory over Nick Gage. And a loss to Davey Boy Smith Jr. He last competed in 2019. This is when he was... No, yeah, he was not in the company. He was out of the company, right?
Yep.
He was Killer Kross still. Very interesting. Natalya and Pete Dunne have also been booked for the show. Interesting. I like that they're letting... that. Yeah. And then other bookings, by the way, for that show is Gabe Kidd, Zack Sabre Jr. It's a total mishmash of everybody. Guys, that's it for this week. We'll be back next week with more live wrestling talk here. A lot to go into next week, I'm sure. Wrestling Observer Live here on Sports Byline. We'll see you all next time.